A warm welcome and a heartfelt namaste. I, Anuradha Sharda, would like to thank all of you for watching our videos, for writing in your suggestions and your comments. Today we are going to talk about the third lord in various houses. How does the third lord work in various houses and what are its characteristics? But for that, we must be very well versed with what the third house means and what it represents, as would the third lord. The third house would mean the third lord would represent, and the third house would represent our traveling, short travels to begin with. The third house is also the representation of our brothers and sisters, siblings, and our friends, closed ones. Okay, the third house for us represents valor, the courage that we have to do something. It represents the strength that we have. It represents a steadiness that we show in our work. Steadiness would also be accompanied by the perseverance that we have, and it also means the ability to go on doing something for a long period of time. So it also shows patience. It For the parts of the body, it talks about our ear, it talks about shoulder, our throat, our arms, and the chest. When we talk about the third house in terms of people around us, it would also include the slaves as per Uttar Kalamrat. But we do not live in the era of slaves, so we can also talk about the assistants or the servants that we have working for us in our homes. Then the third house would also talk about the clothes that is worn by us. Now, the third house is all about initiation, your ability to do something. So, we have already discussed above that we need the courage to do it. The third house also represents the mind games and the mind, the ability for us to use a mind to do something. So, the creativity forms an essential part of the third house. Our ability to be a good orator, to speak well, is associated with the throat and the third house, and it also includes a creativity. It also is about short journeys and being able to do things in a very travel in a comfortable conveyance or a comfortable vehicle. It represents large undertakings. That is, when one is working in a large undertaking, we can also take it from the third house. Finally, when we talk about the third house could also would mean our religious beliefs, because the third house is a reflection of the eighth house. And when we're talking about the third house, we know that the fourth house is the property. So the division of property amongst the siblings would also be seen from the third house, also because the third house is the eighth from the eighth. So all these things taken into account can be ad- you know can be checked, can be derived from the third house. We should also be here talking about the Karako Bhavanashaya. Uh, so, generally, it is said that if the Karaka of the house is present in that house, it would create issues for that house. Mars, as we know, is the Karaka of the third house. So, if Mars is present in the third house, does it cause a lot of problems for the third house? That is a matter that we need to see and check even from the divisional chart. In the D3, if the Mars is present in the third house or present in the lagna for that matter, in such a case, this Mars is the one that is going to create a lot of problems for the person. And will it create problems for in every sphere of life? No. In such a case, it will create problems for younger siblings. One may not have a lot of younger siblings, or if one has younger siblings, there can be problems with younger siblings. Younger siblings may not be prosperous, etc. The other areas of life, be it being a good orator, be it being very creative, be it having a good support system in terms of servants working in your house, or having a lot good conveyance for travel, all these things will get more strengthened because of the presence of the Karaka. You would also be a very courageous person and would not be afraid to do any undertaking. All these things are important for us to understand. Now, supposing Saturn is sitting in the third house. If Mars is sitting in the third house, this shows a great deal of courage, your ability to be quick on your actions, because the third house of the natural zodiac is uh, is Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, which is a very fast planet. So, in that case, a person has the agility and the ability to be thinking on their feet. Their creative powers would be very high. But supposing it is Saturn here, we've also talked about steadiness, we've also talked about patience and perseverance. So, when steadiness, patience, and perseverance is reflected in a person's chart, there should be or there can be reflections of Saturn sitting, aspecting the third house, aspecting the third lord, or sitting in the third house. So, these qualities would be enhanced by a presence of Saturn there. When Jupiter is sitting in the third house, it's most likely that Jupiter can. Now, all these things is open to modulation by the depending on the house which these planets occupy. Sorry, are in your chart. The owners that these lords are, these planets are in your chart. So that would make a very big difference for you. But if Jupiter is sitting there, it gives you an ability to speak to people in a very modified and a very cultured manner, and you can be very thoughtful before saying things. So that will also help you a lot. Similarly, when Venus is present, it means you could get a good chunk of the property. You could have a younger sister and sibling. When Moon is present here, it would definitely mean that you can have a very mind which is very undecisive and yet very creative. Mercury, we definitely know, gives us a quick thinking mind and an ability to talk, to win others over. If Sun is present in this third house, Sun as the ruler of the third house, as sitting in the third house, gives you an ability to win over your enemies at all costs. You're never ever afraid of anybody when we are doing this. So this is so much about planets posited in the third house. That would be, again, I repeat, and it bears repetition, that it would be open to the it would be subject to the house, the lordship of these planets, the houses that they lord over in every chart. So let us begin with what happens when when these planets are the lords of different houses, or what happens when the third lord is posited in different houses for us. When third lord is posited in the lagna, your entire life is revolving around a lot of excitement, adventure, ability to being courageous, ability to do things which others cannot even venture or think about, because the third house, as we saw, represents that. Lagna represents our own selves. Lagna represents all our conditions of life. So our conditions of life are generally stipulated by our ability to go out and do things. It also means that we are very, very close about our siblings, and our siblings also rise highly in life, because for the sibling, for the third lord, it is the 11th house. From the third house, is the lagna is the 11th house. So the our siblings also will find a rise in life. It could also mean that you will always be a very enterprising person. The Now, for the third lord in second house, the second house is the house of happiness, the house of morals, the house of values, the house of education. And the third lord is your steadiness, your perseverance there, you're being patient there. So if supposing, especially if the second third lord, as I said, happens to be Saturn and is in the second house, it definitely shows that you would be very steady about those things. You would show a lot of courage in those areas, especially for your family. You would be using your education, your ability to speak to your advantage for your family's chart, for your family members, or for that matter for anybody. If the second lord, third lord is in the second house, your ability to work, your courage, everything would be focused around these things. For your family, it could be about learning. You would be focusing all your perseverance, your steadiness, your patience to learn something, to get wealth for the family, to stand up to your morals. Sometimes when you would end up fighting, you would know what your morals are, and you are going to be very focused on those issues. So that is what the third lord in the second house could denote for you. When the third lord is in the third house, again, it's a very strong position. When the lord is in its own house, it is very protective about it, and it would not allow any other it's a swagrahi planet. So there's, as it swagrahi means a planet in its own house, and as per the Shastras, it is being said that this planet is in a very strong position. Even when we do it statistically, it is said that it gives more than 75% results, and this is a very beautiful thing. So when the third lord is in the third house, it makes you extremely creative. It makes you a person that will always be able to take up chances in life. Your ability to think quickly on your feet, your ability to be steady in your job, your ability to be a good orator, or for that matter be creative, is very strong. And because it also aspects your ninth house, it is a place where it is because of this reason that you would be able to gain a lot of honor and a lot of name and fame. You would also be very particular about your siblings. You could be very possessive about your siblings. At the same time, your mother could be a very generous person, because it is the 12th lord for her in the 12th house, meaning she could be traveling a lot, and she could also be a very generous person. A person who would like to visit ashrams, a person who would like to go here and there. For the ninth house, again, it's the seventh lord. So for the South Indians, it could also mean a good spouse of your father's also. Now, when the third house is a lord is posited in the fourth house, in such a case, this is a beautiful case. Why do I say that? Because the fourth house is generally a house of the heart. Okay, and that is a place when, if the fourth lord is well placed, you could find your way in anybody's heart. And if the third, if any other lord is well placed in this house, because the fourth house also connects you to the masses. So if any other planet is posited here, suppose in this case it's the third lord which is posited in the fourth house, because of your skill set, because of your creativity, because of your ability to talk well with others, you could actually connect with the masses, and you could be a heartthrob of the masses. So this is a point that we can always take into account. Again, you could be, your creativity would lead you to doing certain jobs that would create a security blanket for your home, your family, and your friends. Or you could also be making short journeys or doing short travels to make sure that your house is secure. Now, when we're talking about the third lord in the fifth house, this is a very beautiful combination again, because of bhavad bhavam, third to third would be fifth. And if the third lord is in the fifth house, it enhances, it brings forward those qualities of the fifth house, like penmanship, publications, oratorship, like your ability to become a celebrity because of creativity. It could also mean that your ability to be generous to others, your ability to take good care of your servants. This is a beautiful point that we all can understand, because bhavat bhavam is a concept that creates a lot of uh, impact when we are discussing a chart. Now, when we're talking about the sixth house, if the third lord is in the sixth house, again, this is a upachaya lord placed in an upachaya house. So this is a very strong combination, because sixth house denotes our ability to withstand any form of problems. It also gives us an ability to overcome our obstacles in life, because the sixth house represents obstacles. It represents the shadripus. The third house represents steadiness, valor, your ability to be patient about things, your ability to stand tall on certain grounds and fight it out. So your ability to fight any kind of obstacles that you have in life and overcome them can be very strongly seen if the third lord is posited in the sixth house. When we talk about the seventh house, when the third lord is posited in the seventh house, again, this is the sign, the same element lord, because the third lord and the seventh lord are in trine with each other and have the same element. So there's a same element available there, and so the third lord would prosper in such a house, and it would mean that the person would have the ability. Seventh house is also a platform, a public platform that one has, and our ability to convince others through our actions, through our speeches, through our hard work would very much be evident on a public level, on a public scale, because the third lord is entrained with its own house, that is in the seventh house, and it also represents our personal and professional relationships with others. So here we can say that the third lord is the friend, and the seventh lord, be it a professional or a personal relationship, seventh house, be it a personal or a professional relationship, would denote that we are friends with our spouse, or for that matter the people that we come in association with. It's easy for us to make friends with them and to convince them. When we're talking about the third lord in the eighth house, let us correlate certain things that the third house and the eighth house have to say. The third house is creativity, the third house is imagination, the third house is our perseverance, our patience, and our ability to work on something and to initiate something new. Now this is a place where we need a lot of this is a lord that will show a lot of imagination. It will give us an ability to stick on to something. Eighth house, what does the eighth house show? The eighth house shows under the ground activities, and activities that will help us to find out things which are under the sea level, or which are hidden. So in essence it gives us an ability to do a lot of research. In essence it gives us an imagination to find out avenues which we have not thought for, or others have not thought for, and work on those, because you need a steadiness of mind, you need a perseverance of mind to see something or imagine something which is not yet out in the open. So the third lord in the eighth house will definitely give you an ability to do a lot of research. Now, when the third lord is placed in the ninth house, the third lord, we've already shown you about the religious aspect of things, because the third lord in the ninth house could also talk about religion, it could also talk about honor, it could also talk about a lot of public acclamation, and it could also talk about being righteous and just, because the ninth house represents being righteous and just, and it also talks about your inclination towards the religion, or for that matter standing up for the truth, being a very logical person, because third house is all about creativity, skills, mental issues, and ninth house is also all about your being a very logical person. So that is where these two houses get connected when the third lord is in the 10th house. The 10th house is a house that talks about your ability to do hard work. Third house is imagination, skill set. We all need a lot of skills to do something good. The third house is also oratorship. The third house is the house of convincing power. At the same time, it is all about patience and steadiness. So when we're doing some work, if you are steady, if you are patient, then that work prospers. Especially if it is Saturn, then it's a very beautiful combination to go with. So in that case, we can see that the person would be able to steadily work on his or her feet. And if it's Mars, which is the third lord, and posited in the 10th house, in the 10th house this Mars, or sun for that matter, becomes digbali and gives one the ability to work really hard, focus his or her own energy in their work. Okay, and as sun, if it is the third lord and posited in the 10th house, for me I would always say that this person would always become a part of the government, and would be a big part, a huge part of the government. When the third lord is in the 11th house, in such a case, this lord will give you, again, as I have also said, that this is again an upachaya house and of the same element, because the 3, 7, and 11 are connected, as they are in trines with each other and have the same element. So the third lord in the 11th house shows growth, shows a lot of and again being in upacha house shows a lot of growth in terms of your career, name and recognition from people. It could also mean that you would have a lot of income coming your way because of your skills, because of your ability to connect with your friends, make social connections, because that's again an air element. So your ability to connect with others gets you, garners you contracts, it because the 11th third house is also contracts, and the 11th house is all about big associations. So it gets you associates you with big houses, and you are able to earn a lot of money out of that. Finally, when we talk about the third lord in the 12th house, the 12th house is the house of selfless service. This is the house where you let go of a lot of things. So when the third lord is associated with the 12th house, it gives you an ability to be a selfless person and do a lot of service to others. At the same time, the 12th house gets you a lot of recognition. Not that you are aiming for it, but this is a house which does get you a lot of recognition. So the third lord in the 12th house gives you a lot of recognition, and it brings you a lot of peace and your ability to kind of give your actions away to the almighty in favor of his or her servants, where you can have a lot of bhakti, because the third house also gives the bhakti element to you. So, and the 12th house is all about the connection with the cosmic powers, so that gives you an ability to show devote yourself to others. So the third, now let us take up a few examples and see how it works for us. So let us take the case of Amelia Earhart, the first woman to cross across the Atlantic uh, in a plane, and in make a solo ride across in the air, and she has her third lord in the lagna, and it's moon, so it's shows, crossing over the waters, and it also shows that she had a very happy go lucky attitude towards life, a very daring attitude, but because it is also sitting with the lagna lord. As I said, when it's all about challenges. As I said earlier on, the lagna lord, the third lord placed in the lagna, is all about excitement, challenges, adventures, and that dictates the life, and which is exactly what Amelia was all about. When we see the second house hosting the third lord, in such a case, the person is very high on their morals. They would stick to their morals, and as we've seen earlier, it is Ramon Magsaysay, and Magsaysay award is named after him. He was very big on morals and standing up and fighting for those morals and values that he had done, and he was a Philippine who is well known all over the world for his stance on doing things in a very, very moralistic ground and fighting for it, as the third lord would denote. Now, when we talk about the third lord in the second house, again, we can see that Henry Ford, it's all about having an initiation to do something new. Henry Ford was one of those people as who was very particular that he wanted to do a lot of reforms. Again, being very moralistic, there is a moralistic view even in his work. He was the one who initiated a lot of change for money, but at the same time, he made sure that people were well compensated for it. He was the one who started the 7 hour, 5 week day, and increase the wage rate, everything. And so we can see how it works so favorably in his chart. Michael Jackson, third lord in the third house. Michael Jackson's voice is a legacy that he left behind, and so many years after his death, that still resonates in our mind, his voice and his ability to connect with people along those grounds. His courage to let go of his father, and his courage to let go of his mentor, because we see it's also talks about the ninth house, it reflects in the ninth house also. It can all be seen when we talk about Michael Jackson's chart. When we talk about the third lord in the third house, again, Hitler's chart is very beautiful, where he says that he was the one whose oratory powers are very well known. And that is how, with Jupiter present right there, he managed, and Moon, the Karaka of masses, with the Karaka of masses, his voice was the one, his ability to convince people. In fact, he could put people in a trance with his lectures, with his speech, and that is why he got a nation working for him, eating out of his hands. Third lord in the fourth house, Mars sitting in the fourth house with Jupiter, for with the fourth lord for Walt Disney and others also, we see his creativity, his ability to think something new, his skills, his ability to convince his wife that there is also a chance that I could, do something new, and her siding with him gave him the ability to connect with the masses and be popular with the masses. In his Mickey Mouse, he has created a cartoon that has not just stayed behind him, that has created legends that have inspired others to work around similar grounds. So that's also a form of inspiration, can also be seen from the third house. Akshay Kumar, we have his third lord is sitting in the fifth house, and it's all about creativity, it's all about sports, it's all about action management, crisis management, that we can see that the third lord inspires you to. It inspires you to think on your feet, do something good, and be very happy about it. So that is what the third lord in the fifth house, as we said, does. When we are seeing the third lord again in the fifth house, creativity, speech, Gordon Ramsay is known as much for his cooking skills as his talking skills and generosity of heart. So we can see the generosity and the charitability for both Akshay Kumar and Gordon Ramsay, with the third lord being present in the fifth house. Edward Snowden, if you've heard of WikiLeaks, if you've heard um, of Edward Snowden, you would know that he did not think twice about taking the agencies, the government agencies of US hands on, and it gives him an ability to stand tall again and fight the battle to the T. Edward Snowden came from a family which was dedicated to working for the US agencies, and yet he did not think twice about taking up the battle, picking up the axe. And we can see his third lord is very well there, sitting with an exalted retrograde planet in the sixth house, which gave him the strength to fight with the agencies till kingdom comes. Mahatma Gandhi's chart, third lord in the seventh house, and third lord in the seventh house speaks of an area for him where we see that he has stood his ground against all opposition. That's the seventh lord. Because of his speech again, because of his ability to convince others, as he was a lawyer, the third house was again very important for him. The third lord was very important. And we know that Jupiter represents the lawyers also. And his speech was the one that convinced, his method, his creative method of ahimsa, which was never heard of before. And his application led him to a public platform, a huge public platform. We know wherever Jupiter sits, it expands. So that gave him an expansive public platform, internationally expansive, and a recognition to be seen. And we see that the third lord in the seventh house is a very good place to be in because of the same elemental qualities. Again, the third lord in the eighth house for Louis Pasteur. See, it's the same lagna, and but the stance changes when the planet changes house. Same lagna, same planet, Jupiter in the third and retrograde for that matter, for Mahatma Gandhi, gave him a public platform where he convinced a nation, and not just one nation, many nations, to adopt his policy and to fight for their own right. And in Louis Pasteur's case, that is the same retrograde Jupiter moving on to the eighth house. Here gives an ability to dig deep, to go in for research. So it's a matter of house that is very important. Do a lot of research and be very proficient, well known in his field, because again, it's moon there, connects him to the mind, connects him to the masses with his research. As we move into Jayalalitha's case, it's the third lord sitting in the ninth house and also aspecting the third house. Its sun. It gave her a lot of courage to stand up to others, and it also gave her a lot of name recognition, be it as an actress or be it as a politician. She ruled the roost while she was in it. And when we talk about the third lord in the 10th house, as in case of Swami Vivekananda, in case of Swami Vivekananda, we see that it is Saturn, and it gave him such a huge amount of ability to be very constant with his work. It is again the ability to have the perseverance and the perseverance, to be patient, knowing that there can be many who would not be agreeing to what you're doing, but still being very consistent in your work and then going ahead. That very 10th lord gave him an ability to expand further. And we see it's with moon again with the masses, but it is also forming the Punarfu Yoga. So he did not, at the first attempt, he was not able to get through it, but repeated attempts led to bigger successes. When we talk about Marilyn Monroe with her third lord in the 11th house, we know that again it's the same element. It's Mercury, which is about speech, it is about being creative, it is about being ability to think fast on her feet, and that gave her a steady income. Her association with people bought her a lot of income, and it also bought her a lot of friends in the industry. It also bought her a lot of associations, and it also brought her recognition. The 11th house also gives you a lot of recognition and a lot of name and fame. Finally, we take the chart of Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He was a freedom fighter and selflessly, in spite of being an extremely intelligent person, a person very dedicated to education, yet he devoted his whole life for the freedom struggle. And it's the third lord, so it gave him an approach, a very steady approach, thinking how he could. He was also a thinker's mind here when he was doing service for mother and motherland, wherein he was thinking all the time as to how he could do a better job at it and serve people better, fight for the country better. It was a very selfless and a thankless job to begin with, but we know that it also gave him an international name and fame. So the third lord in various houses, depending on the planet, depending on the planet it is, and depending on the house it is placed, can give various amount of results. But its essence is all about creativity, perseverance, strengths, and knowing what your weaknesses are. When we know as the third lord, it is also about unlocking the karma, and it will help you unlock your karma in that particular area. For Marlene Monroe, it was unlocking associations for her, which brought her a lot of wealth. For Bal Gangadhar Tilakji, it was about unlocking his area of work was selfless service, and that brought him a lot of recognition. For that matter, for Mahatma Gandhi, his ability unlocking his karma was moving on a public platform. For Akshay Kumar, it is his sports. It is his ability to be associated with sports and thinking on his feet that got him a lot of public recognition in the fifth house. So, the third lord is a very important lord and should not be neglected if you want to know how you can unlock your karma and how you can make a prosperous life. Till we meet with you again, stay safe, be happy. Thank you.